In your questionnaire, you acknowledge that you've seen a Facebook video or certain videos of this incident, right?
I have not seen the video.
Oh, you have not. I'm sorry, I hadn't flipped my page. So you've not seen any of the social media videos or news stories with clips of the video or anything?
No.
Okay.
I've seen the still, there's a still image that was pretty common, but that's the most I've seen.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. There's a question on the questionnaire that says, from what you've seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of the defendant, Mr. Chauvin? And you said somewhat negative, and then it asks you, why do you feel that way? And there was no response. Why did you answer that you have a somewhat negative impression of Mr. Chauvin?
Again, just from, that's the only thing I've ever seen of this person, and that video, just makes you sad. I feel like it's just, nobody wants to see somebody die, whether it was like his fault or not. Nobody wants to see that, it's just hard to watch something. So, yeah, and of course, obviously, you see all of these people talking and saying things and coming at someone's character on social media and stuff, so the perception that you're given is negative, but then when you actually think back on it, you're like, okay, I don't know this person though, so I feel like this, but again, I could be proven wrong or whatever.
Your role as a juror in this case is to weigh the evidence, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to listen to the evidence from both sides?
I believe so, yes.
Would you be able to keep an open mind until all of the evidence
I
is
believe
presented?
so, yes.
Okay. Would you be able to, if ultimately you felt that the state of Minnesota failed to meet its burden to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, would you have any reservation in finding Mr. Chauvin not guilty?
If that's the path that was laid out, no.
Okay. And conversely, the other way too, right?
That's correct.
We talked about how it could have been me, or anyone else.
I mean, anyone else. Me, human, can be it could be anybody. It could have been you. And so that's what I mean. And for me, I also used to live not far from that area before, when I first met my wife. So that's why I was like, it could have been me. So it could be anybody.
In terms of your perception of Mr. Chauvin, you checked the box marked somewhat negative, and then when asked why, you wrote, I feel the officers have different levels of culpability. I do not know the laws and procedures of the police for detainment, but a man died, and I'm sure that's not procedure, right?
Correct.
But you acknowledge you don't know what the police procedures are, right?
Correct.
And if you were to hear evidence that was contrary to that, would you be able to accept the fact that perhaps procedures are different than you thought they may be?
I don't know what they are, so the evidence put forth would be fact.
Did you form the opinion that he was doing something wrong?
I don't know if he's doing something wrong or not, but somebody died from the situation. So I mean, I like I said, I don't think he had any intention of harming anybody, but somebody did die. So even if you have no intention of doing something and something happens, somebody could have possibly still intervened and prevented that.
Did you associate, or have you ever associated that Blue Lives Matter with police officers?
Oh, so that's what that means. As blue means officers. Say that question again now, please.
Sure. And I think you answered it. But at the time you were filling out the survey, did you have an understanding that Blue Lives Matter actually refers to police officers, blue lives?
I can honestly say no, I didn't perceive it like that because I didn't know what blue meant.
You were asked a couple of questions about your perspective on Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. You wrote that both of those you had a somewhat favorable opinion of. And with respect to Black Lives Matter, you wrote, I took this position because every life should matter and black people think their lives are not valued. Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, why do you?
I mean, every life matters, right? I say that, yeah. But again, the black people, that's what they think. It doesn't mean that's what it is, right? But that's what they think.
Police officers are human. They're not robots that are programmed to all behave in the exact same way. So I feel like, you know, as humans, they can make mistakes as well. And, you know, if there's a case in which people feel like anyone was mistreated in any way, I think they should be asked about it and asked to explain why any certain events took place.
All right, with us now, criminal defense attorney Lakai Vinson and managing partner of the Cochran firm, Brian Dunn. Lakai in Charlotte, North Carolina, Brian from Los Angeles. Lakai, to you first, this jury. We've got 10 now on the panel and inching closer to the 14 that's needed. You heard some bits and pieces there from 9 of the 10. What's your overall take in terms of the diversity and the panel that's been assembled?
Well, thank you for having me, Ted. We are at 10, so now we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're not on day one. We have gotten to a point where we have a significant amount of jury members. My overall sense is that these jury members have been exposed, which we all expected on some level, to this case. So the question remains, despite their answers, can they push that aside? Can they be impartial? Can they be fair when hearing the evidence before them? And only time will tell. I mean, we all sitting here watching this, we are members of the jury, and we will make a determination about when the evidence comes forward, whether or not those jurors were really impartial and fair, and whether or not we agree with whatever conclusion they come to at the end. So it's interesting, and we're all watching.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process as we watch this play out. Most of the cases we cover, but this is unique in that we're getting individual voir dire, Brian, and it does allow a different level of probing, does it not?
It absolutely does, Ted. And you bring up a really important point, because I can't remember the last time I've seen gavel-to-gavel coverage that actually includes every single aspect of jury selection. We're seeing it as it's happening in real time, and that's just unusual. And one of the most important things about this trial that separates it from literally every other one, except the OJ trial perhaps, is that this is happening not just in a courtroom, but it's happening on a public scale nationally, even worldwide. Every decision that is made is being looked at by millions, tens of millions of people. And when you think about that, you think about this as not just something that is limited to that courtroom, but the country as a whole.
Yeah, Lakai, your thoughts on the attorneys and the judge and how it's playing out?
So, I do not envy them, although I enjoy being in their positions that they're in right now. We all know that this is a huge jury trial. This could completely change the trajectory of any one of those attorneys' careers in the room. In terms of how good of a job they're doing, I think that they are certainly doing a good job with questioning the jury. We all know that if it were us, there may be certain things that we may skew a little bit, ask questions differently based on our personality. But I think that both of these attorneys are doing a good job equally. I think that the judge has a huge task on his hand in making decisions about these motions that each one of the members of the council or each side of the council are filing. So he certainly has a tough job ahead in making those decisions. But I think they're certainly doing a fair job. They're coming off friendly and likable to each one of those jury members. They're making them comfortable, which is important, because if a potential jury member is uncomfortable with you when answering your question, it makes it very difficult to answer if they feel like there'll be judgment cast on whatever their response is, or if they're not comfortably answering those questions. So I think each one of the attorneys are doing a really good job making each side or each potential juror feel comfortable with the questions that they're asking and responding back and having that dialogue.
Brian, so far of the 10, 5 men, 5 women, 3 black, 2 mixed race, and 5 white. And it's a younger jury, partly because of COVID-19. Yes. There's nobody over the age of 60. In fact, it's mid-50s is what they say the cap is, and several 20-year-olds. That makes a difference, does it not?
It really does. And one of the things that people really need to be talking about, Ted, is social media. When you're dealing with the younger generation, which includes pretty much anyone 30s or younger, they're going to be exposed to a lot of information from Twitter, from Facebook. And that's not something that folks that are over the age of 55 are typically going to be as resonant with. But the whole idea of this jury and the makeup of the jury is it's almost a central casting jury. You have 5 men, 4 women. You have an equal balance with regard to race. This is something that seems to be indicative of how the consciousness in that courtroom is that everybody's watching this. And so we want everything to be acceptable so that we are not scrutinized for the jury selection process, for the rulings that are being made. And that type of dual consciousness where we're actually dealing with not only the way that we're perceived in this courtroom, but also nationwide is something that you really have to marvel at. And it's just not something we see every day.
Yeah.
We don't see it ever, really.
Well, I think you saw it in the OJ case. I think everybody was very, the criminal case, everybody was very aware that the world was watching.
There. Yep.
And I would argue that that type of scrutiny and that type of attention typically works for the defense. I don't know that that'll play out this way this time, but typically that will help them. All right, we're going to step aside and take a break. Thank you. When we come back, it is the Daily Sidebar. We're watching everything going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, inside the Hennepin County Courthouse and outside, where also watchful eyes of National Guard troops on the roof are keeping everybody safe and monitoring downtown Minneapolis. We'll be right back.